Really quick, I've noticed that the toilet's flushing.
I noticed that too.
But if that ever happens, just pause what you're saying, let it flush.
Okay.
And then come back, and I should be able to cut it out.
Yeah, I heard the toilet flush a couple times. I thought I didn't even think about that. I want to introduce you to our next guest, John.
The John.
He's got quite a lot to say.
Yeah. Today, yeah.
Popular guy.
Yeah.
He's very deep-throated. Everything he says stinks.
Yeah.
We'll throw that in the beginning there.
The cold open.
Okay.
That's awesome.
All right. Where were we? Oh, yes.
But for your question specifically, it's
A comment from John.
a comment from John.
That is really loud.
Welcome to the Pointe podcast. The Pointe is brought to you by NorthPointe's Bible Department as an outreach for NorthPointe Christian Schools and for outside listeners curious to know more about the grand story of God and the Bible. We're so glad you joined us. So let's just get to the point.
I want to welcome you back to the Pointe podcast. We're in a different room today. We've come into a little more intimate setting, and hopefully you'll like our backdrop here. It's a little bit different than the last two times that we've been here, but it's good to be back. So let's get to the point. And I want to introduce both of our guests. Andrew McKay, you've already been introduced to. He's one of our Bible teachers here at NorthPointe Christian, and he was one of the focus of the podcast we had earlier in a chapel that he gave, and really appreciated that. And we have a new guest today. We're going to be talking to Abby Koetsier. Welcome, Abby. It's good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And Abby Koetsier, I'm not sure what your title would be here. Have you thought about that?
Yes, I had to ask somebody what my title was
Okay.
because I don't actually ever know. I feel like it changes every year. Okay. But I think my official title here is High School Inclusion Coordinator.
High School Inclusion Coordinator.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit today about All Belong, which is not just here, but in many Christian schools.
Yep.
It's kind of an umbrella. Mm-hmm. And then beneath that umbrella here at NorthPointe Christian, we have the Student Union, and we have Unified Sports, and so we're going to kind of delve into some of that.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what All Belong is about?
Yeah, so All Belong used to be called the CLC network.
And CLC is?
It was for the Christian Learning Center.
Okay. All right.
But then they changed their name a couple years ago to All Belong, and really what they do is they partner with different Christian schools in the area, and actually now out of the area, they've expanded to other states, and they work with schools on how do we do this thing called inclusion, and how do we do it well and do it biblically. So they have trainings, which we've actually had All Belong trainers come in and train our entire staff this year and in years past. They have trainings that I get to go to, but then they also get to come into schools and have consultants come and just look at how do you do things and how can we help you. And then they're just kind of a sounding board for us when we have difficult cases that we're trying to figure out. How do we get this kid to learn the best?
Okay.
So.
And All Belong is distinctively a Christian organization.
Yes,
is that
it
correct?
is. Yep.
All right. And I don't want to call her your boss, but maybe your mentor,
Yes.
Brenda Moss, has been really active in All Belong. Can you tell us a little bit what her role is?
Yeah. I don't know. What has Brenda not done? She is and does everything. But for a while, she was one of the consultants at All Belong.
Okay.
And she actually helped consult here every once in a while when she wasn't actively working here. So she would go into different schools and look at how do they do their inclusion program and talk to the teachers, work with kids on how do they get included well in classes.
Okay. All right. Now, under the All Belong category, which really, I think the mission is to ensure that every student, regardless of ability, they feel valued and can access a Christ-centered education. And I think we offer that here. Under that umbrella, then, is what is called our Student Union.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that Andrew has been really chomping at the bit to ask you a question about our Student Union and kind of what we do. And so I want to just kind of turn things over to Andrew here to ask a question.
Yeah. So obviously I've gotten lots of experience working with you and specifically with the ESS team and everyone there. So I think all of us actually have experience working in some fashion with ESS and alongside the student union room. So I'm curious, given that we all have these opportunities, I want to hear what you would say with students that can't typically be measured by the traditional grade level standards that one might see in a school. How are you able to encourage and also give some feedback home for progress that students are able to make? What kinds of metrics or things do you look for in that encouragement and kind of like progress updates with your students?
Yeah, because grades look totally different for students who may not be academically where their peers are. So before Andrew got stolen by the Bible department, he used to work with us, or
We
he
borrowed
still
him.
borrowed from the Bible department.
Do not steal. That's one of the
right, right.
commandments. So
Yeah.
it does anything about borrowing.
Borrow.
Yeah, okay.
I think
For
it's
the Bible
in
department.
7 years I come back.
Ah,
to
that's
ESS.
what it is.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's the
We're
year of
loaning-
Jubilee.
Yeah.
Fabulous. We look forward to that. You got a really good taste in that, working with our students and figuring out how to help them and be successful in different classes. For your question specifically, it's really a partnership with the parents is where it all begins. The teachers here at NorthPointe are great about being in contact with parents and really developing relationships with parents. I get to do that really in a special way because I work really closely with the parents of my students. One of the things that I always start with my parents, even when they're freshmen, their kids are freshmen, we start with, what is your end goal for your student? And we really like to look at it big picture. Because from the big picture, then we can kind of narrow down what the goals are for their student. Because the goal for a parent, for their student, may not to be that they learn all of the phases of biology, cell division, right? But their goal may be, my student knows how to talk to an adult in an appropriate manner. So we do this, what's called a person-centered plan or a person-guided plan. And I start with that for their freshman year. And then we kind of work from what the end goal is and kind of work from that. When we're looking specifically at students who may not be college bound and are going to vocations or whatever else that may be, we like to look at their academic career in thirds. So when they're in our classrooms, we want 1/3 of the time to be social. We want them to be building those social bonds and bridges. We want 1/3 to be vocational, getting them to be ready to go into the workforce. And then we want 1/3 to be academic, because obviously what we do here is academics and we want them to learn. But it isn't just about the academics for these kids who are not necessarily college bound or are going to do job training somewhere. So we really want to develop well-rounded students, and that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is that I get to help students be well-rounded and that we get to teach them some of the soft skills that their peers naturally learn, but we take time to intentionally teach them those things.
Notice, too, that we have a lot of our students will step up and really come alongside these kids that are in the student union. You've got a sidekicks program that I think is really great, I know, in the classroom. But can you talk a little bit about some of the students who are kind of stepping up and how you're training these students to step up and to help them with the social skills, to help them even academically and those kind of things? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Digging into my background a little bit, the reason that I became an inclusive educator is because I had an inclusive education growing up. I went to a local Christian school. Growing up, I just always had kids of all abilities in my classes. And that was the norm for me. And that was actually really formative for me in my high school career. I was one of the helpers because I knew that that is where I wanted my career path to go. And so I had the opportunity to even kind of start doing that a little bit in high school. And because that was so formative to me in my high school career, I wanted to bring that to NorthPointe and really expand that at NorthPointe, which has been really cool to see We call them our sidekicks. They're the general ed peers that come alongside our students with needs, and they are that student's sidekick. They're their buddy. They're that person who's there to cheer them on and support them. Being that person in high school was so formative to me that I was like, I just need to teach all high schoolers about that, because there's something so valuable about being vulnerable and helping somebody else and stepping outside of yourself. We love high schoolers. That's why we do this. But high schoolers can sometimes be self-centered. And
I know we were at one point in time.
I was too.
The world revolves around us.
Yeah, and so giving students a chance to step outside of themselves and to very tangibly help a peer, that's just been something really cool to see. And to see some of the friendships that have blossomed and developed from that is just incredible.
Yeah, I think we've become good noticers, and I think that's in large part, because of the trainings that we've had, that we've been able to go through, and then just making the other students aware that this is who we are. And we had a chapel. We had a number of the students from the student union come up and talk a little bit about their lives and their struggles and those kind of things. And I think it just really fosters a spirit of compassion in the school and camaraderie. And so I just think that what you're doing is a great thing, and what we brought here. Are there challenges? What are some of the challenges that come up with?
You didn't ask me this one ahead of time.
No, this is the curveball. Todd. Don't always throw softballs. Sometimes, yeah. What are some challenges, maybe? Or maybe some misconceptions? Made some people think, okay, all belong, or student union, it's this, but it's in reality maybe something a little bit different. And Andrew could even chime in on this one, because Andrew's been working with it. What are some of the challenges that you have?
A challenge that rises is a student's knowledge of what do we even do? What does the student union room look like behind those doors if maybe I don't have experience back there? What does an ESS parapro, like part of my title is, what do? They come into my classroom, and I think that there's sometimes can be a disinterest, like, well, they aren't for me, and so whoever those employees are, those staff members are, and the kids that they're working with, I'll just leave them alone. When in reality, I would much prefer the inclusion. Everyone comes in together. And so if I push into a classroom to follow a few friends into world history or something, I would love to be an incorporated staff member among the kids, but also mostly to help the students that I might follow there to be incorporated into the room. And so I think some students go hands off as a way of like, I don't want to assume anything because I don't know anything. But in reality, usually a more hands-on approach with their peers is better. So if one student has a question that maybe I'm answering or helping, assisting with, a student stepping up, even though they're not in the sidekick program, is almost always good.
Right.
You know? So just because a student doesn't understand or doesn't have all the information about something that myself or Abby might be doing on a daily basis doesn't mean that they can't be a huge asset, like a really, really important thing. So I think peer help goes a long way, especially in those social dynamic skills. Then Mr. McKay is my teacher and he's helping me. But when, my peer comes alongside and works on this with me, I think that is just a more positive experience.
We do our very best to help kids get the mindset of let's invite everybody, let's include everybody. Everybody belongs. And we have amazing students at this school who that is just how they naturally do it. But it's also something that students need to take ownership of. Like I said in chapel, I can't set up play dates for high schoolers as much as I would love to. But I have parents who say, like, my kid hasn't hung out with anybody outside of the school. Nobody has invited them to hang out on the weekends. And that breaks my heart. But that's one of the things that I can't necessarily fix. But it's something that through our Sidekicks program, I can talk to my students about. And then it's up to them to take that next step. Which we have seen a lot of students step up and do that. But that's always an area for growth. And it doesn't even need to be students with disabilities. I know that there are kids in our hallways who also have not been asked to hang out on the weekends. So that's
right.
just a high school thing.
And so, in a sense, All Belong extends even past what we do in the student union with just our student body here.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Kids that need to be invited outside of the school to events and things that other kids are doing, and just to have that mindset. And really, that's what a Christian mindset is supposed to be. It's supposed to be loving your neighbor as yourself, as reaching out to others who are in need and meeting those needs. So,
Yeah.
I think that it does carry over even past the student union, but that's one of the challenges that I see too. Is that we can make movements toward being inclusive here in the school, but then when school's over, it's like everybody goes their own separate ways, and like you said, outside of the school are the kids you're working with being invited to do other things even outside of the school. I think too sometimes a challenge is kids recognizing that they have a need for the student union. When we have our meetings in the mornings and we talk about kids that are struggling in our class, and we'll be able to bring up and say, hey, what about this young lady or this young man that might benefit from student union help? And just to have the perception that the student union is more than just, for those with learning disabilities. It's for those who really can benefit from it in other ways. So the perception of the student union sometimes needs to be understanding the reality of it.
Yeah, we help all kinds of minds.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, and we have the students who Mr. McKay walks into a room and they proudly say, "He's here for me."
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I
then-
saved you a seat.
yeah, sit right next to me. You're here for me today. But then we also have the students who are like, "Don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Don't talk to me." So it's all about the balance. Like we just gotta students' perceptions of who we are and what we do, and that it's not bad to ask for help. I always tell students one of my biggest weaknesses is asking for help. I'm terrible at asking for help. I want to do everything myself because I don't want to be perceived as weak, or I don't want to be perceived as not knowing. Our students have those same fears, and so when they don't want to ask for help or don't want Mr. McKay to help them, it's stemming out of that place often.
And it's a great ministry we have here, the student union.
Absolutely.
Anyway, did you have another question?
I did, yeah. So considering some of the things that might come up that are challenges, because I know that it is hard and very good work to establish this atmosphere of inclusion among our school. What would you say is a moment that rises above as kind of, you could say reward or a payoff? That's just amazing that I got to see this, or this thing happened, and it makes all of this hard work just feel extra worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're in the trenches every day. So those bright spots, they are so valuable. I mean, one of my favorites from a couple years ago is in the fall when we do our homecoming, every student is asked to vote on a class representative for their grade. And when they vote, they're asked to vote for a student who is a good student, a kind leader, somebody who really embodies what NorthPointe is about. One of my students, her freshman year, she's graduated last year, but her name is Maddie. She has Down syndrome, and she was elected the representative because when her classmates looked at that list of kind, loving, and embodies everything, she was the person who embodied that, and her classmates recognized that in her. And it wasn't let's elect Maddie. It was no, Maddie truly is our class's representative. And so she was so thrilled about it. She talked about it all 4 years of her high school career. But that was one of the things that that just made me so happy to see that her peers recognized that in her. Maddie is Maddie, and she is who we want to represent us as a class. Yeah, I mean, seeing my sidekicks helping out in classes, and sometimes a name shows up on my list, and I'm like, that person wants to be a sidekick? I would have never thought of that person as stepping up to be a leader in this way. That person signs up to be a sidekick, and they turn out to be the strongest leader and advocate I have that year. And just giving kids the opportunity to step out of themselves and to lead in a way that maybe they wouldn't have originally thought that they would be willing to, and to form those friendships has been really awesome.
It's a great segue, I think, into the unified sports, not only with Maddie, but with the partnering and things like that. And from what I understand, here at NorthPointe Christian, you have like the greatest coach that money can buy for basketball.
Absolutely.
Well, that would be me. Just but that's where I've had an opportunity to really get involved with what you guys are doing in the unified sports. And it's just been such a blessing with the basketball and coaching and getting to know these kids in a deeper way and richer way. But when it comes to unified sports and specifically basketball, because that's what I do coach, can you talk about some of the benefits that you've seen for students, both for the athletes and for the partners that come alongside? So the partners would be kind of like the sidekicks that will come alongside the athletes. And you talk a little bit about some of the biggest benefits that you've seen from that.
I mean, one of the biggest.
I mean, other than us winning every game. Well, not every game.
Well, we had a couple seasons that were pretty rough there.
That's true. So,
we have recently started doing well.
Yeah.
No, we've got a great team. It's been really fun to see this group of kids just grow together and grow not only in their basketball skills, thanks to Coach Schenck, but grow together as a team. Yeah, unified. One of the best parts about that is that it's another chance for kids to join together outside of school. Sports and athletics, that's just a natural high school thing. And for a student who struggles and maybe isn't the most athletic, they don't necessarily get that opportunity to be part of a team and to feel that camaraderie. And unified sports just brings that. It's the best.
And you see them gaining confidence. And, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a young lady that really didn't want to play, and she was very shy. And I remember the first practice we had, and just even touching the ball was like, I don't want it. And then to come through the season, and she's wanting the ball, and she's wanting to shoot her shot from her space, and she's making these shots. And we're doing this in front of large crowds because we're playing some of these games between varsity games in the evening, and so there's large crowds that are there, and these kids getting out there and having that experience. And then the tournaments that we play in with all these teams, and it's just so much fun.
Yeah, it is. It's truly the most joyful sports experience. But having these kids be a part of a team, that experience is huge. Parents are like, my kid has something to look forward to after school. They're part of something. They have group chats, right? Our unified team actually did like a little team party at the end of the season this year. And they all got together and they were like, this is the first party that my kid has been invited to, outside of school. But having that common connection over a sport is such just an innate high school thing. And so the ability to do that with our students is incredible.
Now, not only do you have the basketball, but you've got other sports in unified. I know bocce ball is one of those things that you're doing. Is that in the spring when we do that?
We do a bocce club in the spring where we get students together after school every once in a while, and we just go out and play some bocce ball. We get to be a part of usually about one tournament a year hosted at other schools where we get to go and play bocce ball. I mean, it's the best. It's beautiful spring weather, and we get to go outside and play bocce. But partnering up with our athletes and our partners and playing bocce ball in the spring is the greatest. I would love to start more unified sports.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Are there any more that we're looking at? Possibly.
I need some more coaches. So if you're interested in coaching a unified sport, No, there's tons of different unified sports that are offered. We just need to figure out what is best for our students and figure out who's willing to coach, because I am not an athlete. So the unified portion of this is my wheelhouse, but the sports part of it is not my wheelhouse. So just finding people who are willing to step up and say like, hey, I want to help with the inclusion effort, and I would love to start something else unified.
Right.
That would be.
Well, I say, even though that you may say you're not an athlete, you are a quick learner, and so there are times when I wasn't able to be there, you were able to take over the coaching responsibilities. So
makes me sweat every time though.
Don't sell yourself short. You did a great job.
It is one of the highlights, probably the highlight of the week, when we get to end with a Friday unified game. Just everyone going down to the gym. I even got to play in the staff one.
Yeah.
Which was a wild...
We had
that
staff
was crazy.
versus the unified team, and we had those banners up there with the pictures of each of the unified kids, just like that.
Yeah, we got banners just like the varsity players this year. It was really cool. Yeah, one of my favorites is when we get to do a game at the end of the school day, and the entire student body comes, and the roar of the crowd as our athletes take the court, it's like, it's a glimpse into heaven.
Yeah.
Oh my word, it's the best because everyone is just so excited. And the fact that even our students, they cheer for both teams. Our students cheer every time someone scores, which you don't get at varsity games. But just the love that is felt in that room and the excitement is incredible.
Yeah, well, sometimes I go after the referees, but that's so just to kind of, as we're wrapping things up here, and we're gonna to do that. So how is seeing inclusion in action? How does that strengthen kind of your faith and the faith of others? Because really, the All Belong is a distinctively Christian program, and so ultimately, it's meant to really kind of lift us up and edify and strengthen our faith. And so how is that done in your life and maybe seen in the life of some of the other other people?
Yeah, I think what we get to do is really unique because we look at everybody as an image bearer, right? That is the one thing that we all have in common, is that we are image bearers of God. And we get to see that shown in so many different ways through so many different students and so many different abilities. Being able to talk to kids about how you are made in God's image, and even though you may struggle with a couple different things, there are so many things that God has given you gifts, and God has gifted you with those things, and He wants you to use those gifts to glorify Him and to share His love with others. And to see kids grow in their confidence. I've had a couple kids come in to NorthPointe from other schools, and they were just defeated and they didn't think very highly of themselves. But then being able to teach them through the viewpoint of, you are God's child and He has given you specific talents. And then to see them their senior year where they have confidence in themselves and they are confident in their abilities, the gifts that God has given them, and that they are then able to go out and be confident in what they can do, even though they may still have some struggles. That is why we do what we do.
And I say here at NorthPointe Christian, our mission statement is to prepare these students, equip these students, I should say, to impact the world for Jesus Christ. And what you were just saying there are really the mandates that support our mission statement. The mandate of the image mandate, that we're created in God's image, each and every one of us. Value is found in that, first and foremost. And that we want to image Christ in the ways that we can. The love mandate, that we're loving our neighbor as ourselves. We love the Lord our God with all of our heart, and our neighbor as ourselves. And then the mission mandate is to ultimately go and make disciples.
Right.
And I think that what we're doing here in the All Belong program, we're doing here with Student Union, and you guys have been working together in that. We're doing here with the Unified Sports, and we're working together on that, I think, is really accomplishing the mission statement here at NorthPointe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you got the point, and we appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll talk to you later. Be back.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Point. I'm your producer, Alex Sigma. And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to rate us on Spotify and share this podcast with others. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Spotify. We'll see you on the next episode.